Part 33. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 321. How do you say this? After all, the relationship between the two is a bit too much to say. Google search reading. Seeing her like this, the two women over there believed that something was going on, and the female warrior immediately rushed out from behind the witch to teach Lugger a lesson. However, Lugger took the lead and explained with a smile, "Didn't I say it before? For some reasons, I, like you, had part of my time stolen away. Not much, only 50 years. 50 years ago, I had a daughter from my ex. Then less than 20 years ago, my daughter gave birth to her." Anya. Lugger patted Anya's head again. "So, who do you think I am to her? I am her grandfather." "What, X3? This answer was really beyond the expectations of many people. Originally, this was very incredible and difficult for people to accept. However, the four of them were originally captured by the evil spirit 30 years ago and have been kept in a biological tissue nest. Their physical age has not changed since then. This kind of thing that ordinary people can't understand has happened to them, so how can they say that Lugger's thing must not exist? Seeing that the three witches looked like they didn't believe it, but couldn't refute it, Luge felt amused. However, this is exactly the effect he wants to achieve. Even though their attitude towards Lugger is complicated and difficult to understand now, once they clarify their thoughts, especially after they believe Lugger's origin of old popsicle background story, they will naturally become closer to Lugger. "How do you say that? We don't get along with others, because we think we are monsters. But I didn't expect you to be the same, so you are one of our own." These four Jumei Taijiamen were transformed into Jumei before they became Taijiamen. Before becoming Jumei, they were human beings. But now, they have broken away from the charm and betrayed Taijiamen, or they have never been loyal to him. But they are not human, and they are not weird. They say they are free, but in fact they are homeless. To be honest, it's not bad for them to follow the so-called new Pope Sarah. However, since they fell into Lugger's hands, he had no intention of returning these four to Sarah. If your allies have it, it's not as good as if you have it yourself. Besides, at least 3 of these 4 are in the technology style, so it is obvious that they have a better future following Ruger. So, now is the time to continue getting closer. Let me guess, Archmage Isandra, what is your Tejaman code name, Libra? After all, you seem to have a good level of magic in all 3 elements, and you feel like a balanced all-rounder. Ruger said, half chatting and half talking. Then, Ms. Maria, you are the water bottle. Using a recoilless rifle to fire projectiles looks a lot like a lady holding a water bottle and pouring water out. Seeing him talk about this again, the 3 people who were surprised by his identity as Anya's grandfather felt somewhat helpless. Finally, it was the female warrior Maria who spoke up first. "You don't think we chose this code name ourselves, do you? This is all the bad taste of that bastard. He wanted to be the Pope, so he came up with the code names of the 12 constellations to make himself happy. The code names are all randomly chosen by it. In fact, they have no practical meaning. But I've seen a golden bull, it's really a minotaur. And a shepherd, it's really a sheep person with spiral horns." Ruger spread his hands. "Yes, really," the little boy became curious after hearing this. "Actually, we haven't had much communication with other Tegaman. We just vaguely saw other people in the biological organization's nest. Well, Cancer and Scorpio, is one a crab person and the other a scorpion person." "Ah, this." Lugger couldn't help but rub his nose after hearing this, and said with some embarrassment, "I have never seen either of them, but I have seen a shooter. He is a gunman riding a strange horse. He is closer to a centaur." That's it. Although the little boy was a little disappointed, he still nodded understandingly. It seems that when the guy chose the host of Taijaman, he must have deliberately chosen the constellations or something like that. However, Mr. Lugger, you guessed wrong. Mother Maria is the scale and teacher Isandra is the water bottle. As for the reason, the little boy was about to say something when he saw the female warrior Maria next to her looking at him with sharp eyes like knives. He shivered, but immediately changed his words, I don't know. However, after he turned his head to avoid Maria's eyes, he muttered in a low voice, when Maria's mother is serious, she really looks like Daddy Ma Li. Ah, this. Lugger was stunned for a moment and seemed to understand. Does this mean that although Maria is born as a girl, her strength and personality are biased towards men, so the masculine and masculine masculinities have reached a balance between the two ends of her scale? Well, if that charming leader E52 was still alive now, he would probably be slowly mauled to death by Maria. It uses this characteristic to designate Maria as a Libra. Doesn't that mean she is neither a man nor a woman? No, neither male nor female is a eunuch. She is both male and female, hermaphrodite. Really, I don't even curse like this. No wonder Maria forbade the little boy Ajeti. Luge nodded silently, avoiding Maria's sharp eyes, and turned to look at Isandra. Well, this guy here can explain it easily. Witches, mysterious witches, are unpredictable, just like Aquarius. Anyway, just rely on it and forget about it. The so-called Barnum effect. As long as it is ambiguous enough, a person can think that his personality fits any constellation or zodiac sign. Although they talked about some random things, after such a casual chat, Ruger's relationship with several people seemed to be steadily getting closer. The little girl who was self-reflecting over there was also massaging the big dog helicopter De Huang while taking out some strange small pieces of meat from her small pocket to feed it. Seeing this, Ruger took out the trump card he used when he hooked up with Tia, roast beef, and gave it to the little girl Li Min to feed De Huang. In this way, the little girl who had just had a complicated and inexplicable feeling towards Ruger, under the complex psychology of guilt, finally secretly accepted Ruger's favor. Of course, on the surface, she still looked like I didn't ask you to feed De Huang, you wanted to feed it yourself, I won't thank you. Yes, another little tsundere. At this point, the 4 Iron Man of the 3 air signs were almost fooled by Ruger and had agreed to help him fight next. As for what would happen after the war, although they did not directly agree to go back to the second sanctuary with Ruger, that was not a big deal, right? As long as Ruger wanted, he had countless ways to take them back. The simplest way was to tell everyone that he had a full set of mechanical repair equipment in the second sanctuary. A car repair shop. Infinite Doomsday start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 322. But if we need to repair another helicopter, the repair shop should evolve into a mechanical repair shop. If the big dog helicopter De Huang is not feeling well again, Ruger can just say that he does not have the right tools and take the 4 people back to the second shelter in the name of treating the big dog. Search thief. Ruger was about to go to the front line of ROG with the 4 people he had just abducted, when he saw a convoy of 4 or 5 tanks rumbling over. Leopard, the big Leopard 2A4 led by Sarah. Following behind were the little Leopard medium tank, a modified version of the Panther V tank, the Horse Bear tank, a modified version of the Panther 4 tank military Mega Panther 4 chassis Grizzly assault gun, and Tia's Boxer 155 MAM light self-propelled artillery. However, the Inuk armored patrol vehicle with a quadruple 20mm anti-aircraft gun trailer sent by Ruger did not follow. Sarah drove a tank over here, facing the Iron Man on the Mi-24P helicopter. The atmosphere was extremely tense and a war was about to break out. Originally, the style of the painting should be like this. However, seeing Ruger's Leopard 2A4 following the shadow of the helicopter, slowly moving forward step by step, everyone knew that this helicopter was probably also solved by him. If ordinary people only hear the words tank and helicopter without close contact, they will probably assume that the tank is bigger and the helicopter is smaller. This, if it is based on tonnage, this intuition is correct. For example, Ruger's Leopard 2A4 currently weighs more than 50 and close to 60 tons, while the Big Dog helicopter, which is modified from the Me-24P, is only 12 or 13 tons when fully armed. But if it is about size, or if it is placed in a workshop such as a repair shed, the required area and even the space volume are larger than the Me-24. And it is much larger. Put two Leopard 2A4s end to end and string them together, it is almost the size of a Me-24. The Leopard 2A4 is about 67 meters long and 70 meters wide. The Me-24 is 8 meters long, with a short wingspan, only the wings, of 65 meters, and a maximum width of about 3 meters. The Me-24's reputation as an air transporter is somewhat related to its terrifying size. However, because it is twice as long as the Leopard 2A4, even if the width of its main fuselage is not much smaller than that of the Leopard 2A4, it still feels more slender. Well, it is actually quite a bit smaller. After all, it is a quarter smaller, and the height difference between ordinary people and Chairman Yao is just like this. The ordinary people here refer to the average height of young men in the Big Pancake Province. 70 and 26. In short, Ruger drove the tank to chase the shadow of the Big Dog helicopter below, and he could really hide most of the car body inside. Yes, when Sarah brought the tank troops to help, he was playing the shadow game so boringly. Sarah saw him acting funny again, and the corners of her mouth twitched again. However, she was helpless, and she was really impressed by her ally's ability to deceive the enemy. But she had nothing to say. After all, it was because of his behavior that he did not regard her as a monster after hearing that she was Andariel, but instead changed his previous defense and made friends with her sincerely. Sarah was sighing here, and Tia was even more direct. Seeing that most of Ruger's body was exposed outside the cockpit and he was driving the tank slowly forward, she hurriedly got off the boxer dog, ran over in 2 steps, and looked Ruger up and down to see if he was injured. As a result, of course, not even a hair was missing. Not only that, there were 2 more people in his car. It turned out that when they were preparing to set off, the female warrior Maria said that she also had a tank in the past, but it was an off-road vehicle similar to the Fave Fast assault vehicle. After so many years, she wanted to ride in a tank to find the feeling of the past. Ruger certainly would not stop her. Although the Leopard 2A4 could originally accommodate 4 people, the left compartment of the loader's turret was occupied by Ruger's automatic loader, so now only 3 people can sit. Just add 1 more Maria. However, the little girl Li Min was not satisfied with this arrangement. How is it possible? Do you think I will let Maria ride in the tank alone with you? Don't be naive, I want to go too, I want to monitor you. Ruger said that it was not impossible, as long as she was willing to sit on the armored plate. But the little girl certainly disagreed. She circled the tank twice and finally found a place where people could sit, which was Ruger's movable cockpit. As long as the cockpit was adjusted to a sitting position and let her sit down, Ruger could barely fit 4 people when he actually drove the tank in a standing position. After all, the little guy was not tall, and it didn't get in the way. The only drawback is that Ruger will feel uncomfortable, and... Why, you don't dare, the little girl asked with her hands on her waist. Seeing this, Ruger decided to do it, since he would not suffer any loss. So, 4 people really sat on the tank. Why sit down? Shouldn't Ruger be standing? But when the tank really moved, it actually became the little girl sitting on the seat, and Ruger sitting on her. When Tia came over, she saw the little girl who was bullied by Ruger sitting on the driver's seat of the tank, pouting and aggrieved, but trying hard not to cry. There is no way, who let this be her own choice. Seeing that Ruger himself was fine, and he had also taken two beauties, one big and one small, to the tank. Tia didn't say anything, but secretly punched him in the waist, but immediately pulled out the little girl who was still aggrieved and pretending to be strong, and took her back to her boxer dog. The little girl was not happy at first. No, no. I will never let Maria be alone with you. However, when Tia also pulled Maria out and was about to transfer to her car, the little girl finally followed. Before leaving, she also made a big grimace to Ruger, as if you guys are finally defeated by my invincible cute girl, La Lily. La Lily was the last tongue-taunting sound. Well, it seems that this arrogant person really has a big heart, and he didn't learn his lesson at all, but used the method of spiritual victory. The two sides connected, and there was no need to fight, and the two teams returned to the camp directly as one team. However, on the way, Sarah still saw some clues, and found an opportunity to run to the Ruger tank, and pulled him to the gunner's cabin on the right side of the turret and muttered. She didn't let Anya leave, but just let her go to the cockpit. Why do I feel so familiar with the aura of these four people? Could they be the Ghost Iron Man? Sarah asked straight to the point. Ruger nodded. The two little guys are twins, Gemini, the female warrior on my tank is Libra, and the witch watching the scenery at the door of the helicopter cabin is Aquarius. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 323. Oh, by the way, that Aquarius used to be a Nephilim, named Isandra. Google search and read, Ruger added casually. What Isandra? Sarah didn't figure it out for a while, but soon she screamed, Isandra. Isandra, the great magician of the three elements. She is actually an Aquarius. After digesting it for a long time, Sarah came to her senses and stretched out her high-heeled leather boots to slam Ruger's shoulder on the gunner's seat. You guy, it seems that you are determined to kidnap my four Iron Man. What do you mean by kidnapping? It's so ugly. It's called making friends. Do you understand? Ruger listened to the sound and identified the position. He grabbed a woman's ankle with his backhand, found a few foot massage points and pressed them crazily, and then heard the person behind him screaming out in comfort. Ahem, the sound made the driver in front cough. Ruger didn't care, but Sarah's face flushed, and she quickly retracted her beautiful legs that were even longer and longer under the tight leather armor. After retracting her legs, Sarah felt that this was too easy for someone, and snorted, Humph, whatever you say, it's a fact that my Iron Man was kidnapped. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me? Hey, these four are not under your control, okay? Ruger looked like he couldn't stand her lion's mouth. I did this to help you solve the biggest safety hazard, but you not only don't thank me, but also want me to compensate you. You should accompany me. Sarah spat lightly, and couldn't help but kick him again, and shouted, Who wants to accompany you? Cough cough. Cough cough, Anya in front of her coughed even more. Is it okay, Anya, or should I prescribe some medicine for you to cure your throat? Ruger continued to tease Sarah, while holding back his laughter and asked hurriedly. No, it's okay, I just... Anya was about to say that there was just a bug in her throat and it was a little itchy, but suddenly realized that this answer was wrong, and quickly changed her words, What, it's too noisy in front, I can't hear anything. Well, not bad, this is the professional quality of the driver. Don't look at it, don't listen to it. Well, it's okay then. Seeing that the little guy was quite smart, Ruger nodded in approval. After saying that, he turned around and looked at Sarah. This look almost made him panic. Before, he gave Sarah a foot massage, but he didn't really think about it in a bad way. He just wanted to show off his appointment pressing skills to avoid being bullied by these physical masters, the Nephilim. But when he turned around and looked back, he saw Sarah in the driver's seat above, wearing a rogue leather armor, which rendered her slender figure to the fullest. This angle is the special angle for photographers to take photos of models with long legs, and they still need to Photoshop the pictures. Sarah's figure doesn't need any post-processing at all, she looks like a natural beauty. She is the candidate for the god of pleasure, and it's not just talk. At that moment, even Ruger, who has watched countless movies and is knowledgeable, felt his throat dry and started to cough dryly with Anya. Sarah was a little shy at first, mainly because she had never experienced this kind of play, and this new body had never experienced it before, so some normal and uncontrollable physiological reactions were very normal. But after seeing Ruger's charming look, she quickly regained the feeling when she used the natural suit to tease someone in the ghost dungeon. Haha, that's it, Sarah smiled charmingly. Hey, you robbed my 4 men, what are you going to use to make amends? Or, just give yourself up. What happened afterwards, the 3 people in the car did not mention to anyone, and naturally no one else knew. However, after returning to the front line camp, Anya immediately jumped off the chariot, hiding from the other 2, and ran to find the familiar Rog to team up to clean up the scattered monsters around. Sarah looked like she had returned from a great victory, and she returned to the commander's tent in high spirits, calling on her men to start making a general attack plan. Rog seemed very calm on the outside, but if someone took a closer look, they felt that this guy's steps were weak, as if he had drifted on the sea for a few days and had just returned to land. Tia had just put down Maria and Li Min, turned around to see him like this, and then looked at Sarah who was walking slowly and charmingly over there, and instantly understood something, and couldn't help but run over and punched him half annoyed and half helplessly. I was only on guard against those 2 new guys, why did I forget to guard against her? Without caring how shocked Ruger was, he pulled him to an empty tent. No, she was my woman back then, but now you dare to snatch my man. I'll teach you a lesson first, and then I'll teach her a lesson later. What? Ruger's brain was not clear to begin with, and he was even more confused when he heard her say that. But if he wanted to break free, he was no match for Tia, so he was honestly pulled into the tent by her, and then he opened up his own logistics space under coercion and inducement and followed her in. 4,637 words omitted here. In short, a few hours later, someone changed from looking like he had been drifting on the sea for several days to looking like he had been drifting for several years. If it weren't for the radiant Tia's support, someone would have fallen directly to the ground and degenerated into a pile of soft amoeba without bones. Seeing Rog looking at him curiously around him, a few older and more experienced people looked at each other while holding back their laughter. After confirming each other's guesses, they tacitly expressed their admiration towards Tia and their contempt for themselves. With a look in his eyes, Lugger swore in his heart that he would find a way to continue to increase his physical attributes. But he also knew that no matter how hard he worked to increase his physical attributes, even if he accumulated more than 15 points or even 20 points, he would not be able to match the reincarnated Tia in terms of endurance and physical strength. Good guy, you don't know unless you have experienced it. Now he knows why it is rumored that the Queen of Pain Andariel is the woman of the fear demon god Diavolo. Their methods are really not something that mere mortals can withstand. The thousands-year-old great elders of sects such as the Hehuan sect in the legendary world of immortals are probably nothing more than this. This is because Tia has no memory of her past life, only some instincts from her soul. If she restored her true form as Big Pineapple, would she still be alive? All we can do is let Andariel match her in chess. He was still in that buoyant state as if he were in the clouds, and Tia had already pulled him into Sarah's tent. Seeing them coming over like this, Sarah's face was also stunned for a while, and then as if she had received some spiritual warning, She hurriedly waved to her subordinates and sent them to make arrangements according to the plan they had made before. When she looked back at Tia, Sarah had a half-fawning, half-questioning smile on her face. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 324. What happened to him? Where did you go just now? I looked for you but couldn't find you, so I had to arrange for Rog first. Before Sarah could finish her words, Tia grabbed her arm and dragged her to the living room behind the tent. Then before she was about to break away, Tia, who had gained temporary control of the logistics space, threw her into the big bed inside that had not been cleaned yet. You. After all, Sarah was a reincarnated person, so she knew everything she needed to know. She could tell what had happened here before at a glance, and she couldn't help but be surprised and ashamed. Just when she was about to make a move, she was thrown out by the fierce Tia. Feeling Tia's familiar routine, Sarah was even more shocked, but she was also happy and surprised. Are you awake? Probably not, Tia muttered with a slightly unconscious voice. I just wanted to teach you a lesson, and then my body moved instinctively. Teach me a lesson? Sarah was stunned when she heard this, and then realized that what she was talking about was most likely what happened before, and hurriedly explained, don't get me wrong, I was just joking with him, we have nothing. I know, Tia interrupted dully, at least I know now. However, that's just right. It means it's not too late for me to teach you a lesson. As she said that, she turned to look at someone who had collapsed on the ground without anyone to help her, and snorted coldly, just right, so that he can see but not eat, and also see what the devil does. After saying that, she attacked Sarah who had opened the middle door. This battle was really fought in darkness. That scene was simply brutal, violent, bloody, and terrifying beyond human imagination. All he could see was that Lugger's blood was brimming with blood and he was sweating profusely. When he saw the dangerous place, he couldn't help but shout out, oh no, it was an exclamation of fear. Seeing that Tia was about to kill Sarah until she dropped her armor and knelt down to beg for mercy, however, the situation on the field suddenly changed. Let's talk about Tia first. She only found out from Ruger that she was the reincarnation of Diavolo. Following this, she also learned that Diavolo and Andariel were a couple in theory. So after realizing that there were some remaining Diavolo instincts deep in the sea of consciousness, she allowed herself to use the methods and techniques of these instincts to teach Sarah a lesson. However, what she didn't know was that in the special relationship between the two Hell Demon Lords, it was Andariel who took the lead. It seems that even the Demon King follows the basic rule of only exhausted oxen, no damaged fields. In the first half, it was really Fangtia who had the upper hand in attacking. She attacked from all fronts and went straight to the main point, passing 5 levels and killing 6 generals, and captured countless cities and territories. But in the midfield, her battle line was too long, her troops were insufficient, and her logistics problems were exposed, and the situation gradually became deadlocked. At this moment, Sarah keenly began to gather the remaining troops and launch a sneak attack on Tia's exposed weakness. Concentrating local superior forces, either encircling points to bring reinforcements, or attacking the enemy to save them, and after several counterattacks, the situation was gradually brought back to a draw. As the saying goes, one can make great progress, then it will weaken, and 3 times it will be exhausted. Tia's side was unable to attack for a long time, but was pushed back by the opponent's defensive counterattack. There was a faint danger of the war returning to the homeland. If this continues, not to mention capturing the enemy, even her own headquarters will be taken away by the enemy. Seeing that the situation was so bad, Tia was so angry that she was also obsessed with winning and losing. She didn't care about the reason for coming to fight, and directly dragged the onlookers into the battlefield as foreign aid. Joined by the reserve team who had just recovered some strength, The two teams on her side formed a team and cooperated to fight back to Sarah's stronghold. This time, she didn't care and even took out a bottle of strange alchemy potion and drank it for a certain reserve team. He actually used the method of needing medicine. On the other side, Sarah, she was able to deal with an old rival alone, of course, with ease. What's more, this old rival hasn't really recovered his memory yet and just relies on some instincts. But when the opponent brought in foreign aid without any martial ethics, Sarah Andalil was unable to withstand it and began to collapse quickly. Thinking about the weird relationship between the three of them, she wasn't ashamed, happy, or annoyed. The connection between demons and gods is not as strong as the world imagines, except for the only pair among the 7 demon kings of hell. Although Andariel seemed to have betrayed Diavolo for some reasons, from the perspective of hindsight, she was actually cooperating with Diavolo in acting the second-generation plot. Judging from the final result, she even sacrificed herself for Diavolo in exchange for the fate of being one with him forever, the third-generation plot. In the current situation, although Diavolo was reincarnated into Tia and was sealed by the alien lost man Mr. Max using some means, Sarah Andariel's feelings for Tia Diavolo are not completely gone. The previous bond. This can be seen from the fact that she also participated in carefully caring for Tia's growth. Tia is a girl, which means Diavolo also changed from male to female. It seems that things have changed strangely. However, the gender of the devil. Is it important? Well, of course that's important to a mortal like Ruger. But for Sarah, the devil, it's not that important. So when Tia used some of the tricks of the 2 demon gods, Sarah subconsciously thought that Diavolo was back. Moreover, her actual mood was more surprise than panic. On the other side of Sarah's heart, Ruger's side, the situation is relatively simple. Ruger is an outsider, who was predicted by Sarah's first ally Max, and the key to her transformation from a demon to a god. Although it seems now that this so-called prophecy may just be a comforting word for her to wait patiently, it must be said that it is precisely because of the existence of this prophecy that she has a different feeling towards Ruger from the beginning. To this day, her feelings for him are even more extraordinary. It seems a bit too much to say that they are more than friends but less than lovers, but it is probably okay to say that they are in an ambiguous relationship. In this way, the situation becomes like this: Tia is like her husband who has been missing for many years and she has long thought that he is no longer in the world. And Ruger is the ambiguous object for whom she has just begun to have some feelings. Importing this analogy into the current bizarre plot, there is such a scene, after being cooked by her former husband who suddenly returned and was basically resurrected, she was thrown to the ambiguous object. What kind of confusing triangle relationship is this? Being thrown into the arms of her ambiguous partner by her ex-husband, they are also a couple. What should she do? Urgent, waiting online. This chaotic relationship is like a set of condensed mental attack armor-piercing bullets, which penetrated Sarah's double composite armor of reason and emotion. Its destructive effect is also considerable, and she was beaten to the ground and suffered heavy damage. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 325. Not satisfied after the successful round, the team over there continued to break into Sarah's undefended command center, and an even more brutal weapons rampage began. I don't know how long it took before the 3 of them helped each other and moved out of the logistics space. This time, Hirig was alone. The 3 of them looked almost the same. But after all calculations, Tia is still in the best condition. As the attacker, although she had been pushed back, her subsequent losses were almost the lowest, making her the undisputed winner. Sarah followed. Although they were defeated miserably 2 against 1, they were the only participants with complete memories of the demon, and their endurance and physical strength were still on par with the boss. One word: resist beating. The worst person is still a certain mortal. After all, although it was 2 against 1, he was still one man against 2 women, a mortal against a demon. After all the calculations, he still suffered the most. However, he was able to fight back and forth with the reincarnations of the 2 demon gods as a mortal. Although he lost in the end due to lack of endurance, it was an honor to lose. Despite this, while walking slowly and vainly, someone still silently warned himself with tears in his eyes, he must strengthen his body. If 20 o'clock doesn't work, then 30 o'clock, if 30 o'clock doesn't work, then 50 o'clock. One day, I will give a voice to the mortals and defeat these 2 demons. Well, the ambition is good. Then wish him good health. When the 3 of them first came out, Sarah was a little nervous. Although as a military officer, she was not afraid of people knowing that she had finally fallen in some way, but after all, she had just arranged the general attack plan, and she was afraid that she would suddenly disappear and the camp would be in chaos. However, Taya, who forcibly took her away in front of everyone, was not worried at all. She curled her lips and said disdainfully, "I have already left someone to arrange it for you. How can I really delay our serious plan because of this kind of thing?" In fact, it was really calm outside, with an orderly atmosphere. When Sarah saw this, she immediately believed 90% of it. However, out of the instinct of a military officer's duty, she still slowly walked out of the command camp. As soon as she came out of the camp, she finally felt relieved when she saw that the camp was still in an orderly state even though it was busy. However, when he came back to his senses and looked again, he saw 2 relatively older ROG guards guarding the entrance of the camp. And the busy ROGs around them, no matter how urgent they are, would rather take a long way around and avoid the command tent here as much as possible, as if they want to deliberately leave some private space for the people here. This is, what's going on? Sarah had a vague premonition of something bad, and was about to ask Taya what the arrangements were, when she saw 2 guards at the door carefully moving to Lugger's side, quietly taking out a bag and stuffing it to him. "It's over." As soon as she saw that thing, Sarah immediately understood that Tia must have told the truth when she made arrangements before. That packet of medicine was the legendary secret that Rog had not passed down. It was specially used to pass on the family line. Well, no, for Rog, it was specially used to reproduce future generations. While Sarah was looking at the sky speechlessly, Luodu had already taken the package of herb-like things and looked through them. I saw a note posted on it, which read, "This is the century-old secret recipe of the sisters. It is only for men. It is a pure natural herbal preparation with no obvious toxic and side effects. It can be decoctioned daily to strengthen the body. Swallowed with solvent at critical moments, it can greatly improve the body's health. Extend the time." What the hell? Why does it feel like he is good and I am good? Luodu hurriedly opened the medicine bag and took a closer look. It was clearly full of raw materials for the alchemy potion that Taya had given him before. For a moment, he also had mixed feelings here. What does this mean? You lost the battle even with taking medicine? Woohoo, strengthen your body. After giving the herbal package to Lugger, the 2 older men suppressed their smiles, saluted Sarah, turned around and left, and informed others that the 3 of them had come out of quarantine. As they walked further away, gossipy exclamations and laughter could be heard from time to time in the dim camp, and 3 black lines appeared on the heads of the 3 of them. "Oh, it's over now, the whole camp knows what I did to you too." Sarah held her forehead and lamented. "Isn't this good? It saves those guys who feel good about themselves from always thinking about your fat body." Tia curled her lips indifferently. "Now you are the most powerful woman in Rog Town. I don't know how many people are trying to drug you and force you to cook." "Haha, even you who stay at home every day have discovered it," Sarah chuckled. "Then tell me, what use are these guys? But thank you for your concern." Seeing the 2 people over there talking and talking, as if they were about to leave him for another round. Luger hurriedly walked over and got in the middle, raised the medicine bag in his hand, and said to the two women beside him, "What did you, Roger, and the blind sisters do before? I thought this was made by Taya as a joke, but it turns out it was passed down by your Rog. A century-old secret recipe. How come there is a secret recipe for this? Is it only for men? Why do you feel like it's a bit immoral?" When he asked this question, the two women did not rush to answer. They just looked at each other, stretched out their pink fists, and went straight to the soft flesh of someone's body. After fighting for a while, Taya, who was still the strongest, calmed down first. Grabbing the medicine bag from Ruger, she walked out while saying, "I'll go and deal with them. It happens that there are several materials that are very troublesome to remove magic pollution, and I don't have much left. These materials can be made before." Tia looked back at Ruger jokingly, "Enough for you to use for 6 or 7 hours, almost enough for one time." After that, she quickly walked towards the tent next to her boxer dog automatic cannon. 6 or 7 hours. Once. Ruger's face turned pale when he heard these tiger and wolf words. While cheering himself up, he exchanged 10 physical strengthening potions. After the attribute exceeds 10 points, taking medicine alone cannot increase the attribute. But as long as they are combined with corresponding exercises, they still have some auxiliary effects. This was discovered by chance when Ruger accidentally took the wrong physical supplement potion in the previous battle. It feels a bit like protein powder for muscle growth. However, to use up these 10 injections of physical strengthening potion, he might have to run 7 or 8 marathons. Someone is really determined to make a strong effort. He was making a strengthening plan for himself when he heard Sarah sighing behind him. "You shouldn't have told her." Now that she knows that she is the reincarnation of Diablo, many methods of identifying whether she is affected by the devil and how much she is affected are useless. If she doesn't know, her sudden change in temperament must be a sign of Diablo's awakening. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 326. But now, I really can't judge. Google search reading Sarah's side. But even if we can't make a conclusion, if we let her go on like this, there will always be that day. You really shouldn't have told her. Hearing her sigh again, Ruger chuckled, "Are you worried?" "You're not worried," Sarah asked back. "Worry is also a kind of fear, right?" Ruger smiled. "Is it because of this that you lost just now? No wonder you are only a demon king, but she is a demon god." Sarah's face flushed again when Ruger reminded her of the previous great battle, and her breathing gradually became rapid. Seeing Ruger turn around and look at her with a teasing look on his face, she thought about how this guy took advantage of her just now, and couldn't help but stretch out her fist and punch him again. "Just keep your mouth shut. I don't believe you're not worried. If he really comes back, I can survive anyway, but you can't. So, you're actually worried about me." Ruger smiled and hugged the angry Sarah to his arms, using the method he had just learned from Tia to relieve her anxiety, and then whispered in her ear, "Don't worry, I believe in Tia, just as I believe in you." After that, he gave a long kiss to a certain Commander Rog, who was in a quantum superposition state of confusion and peace of mind, and then he helped her stand up and walk towards a tent next to a helicopter. Watching him walk away leisurely, Sarah, who stayed in place, gradually regained her clarity from the blur, and finally smiled and turned back to the command tent. Is worry also a kind of fear? So we have to use the courage of trust to overcome fear. You are worthy of it? Then, her and my fate are all in your hands. But Ruger walked towards the helicopter with 3 steps and 3 steps. In his mind, he was checking the new changes in the ally module, and was amazed. After Tia's disturbance, his relationship with Sarah changed in nature, and the ally module of the system was adjusted accordingly. Before, his friendship with Sarah could reach 60% minus 70% of the full value. This means that if Sarah kills a monster with a score of 10 points, Ruger can get 6 to 7 points. And the ally task of helping Sarah complete the transformation from the Queen of Pain to the Goddess of Pleasure can lock this friendship to 100%. That is to reach Tia's level. This is one of the main reasons why Ruger actively cooperated with Sarah and prepared to fight Andariel's physical body in the catacombs of the cathedral. But now, he cooperated with this ally and fell on the same bed with him, and the friendship in the ally module was directly refreshed to nearly the maximum. Not to mention 100%, at least 98-99%. So, does it mean that the task is not urgent? Well, on the contrary. Someone has to cooperate more actively now. In the past, making preparations could barely be considered helping quasi-outsiders, but it was just to help quasi-outsiders become our own. Now, let alone becoming our own, we have directly turned them into our own, so we have to pay more attention to them. He came to the helicopter to find the 4 Iron Mans just for this, paying more attention. Don't forget that before, MP5 Sister Issa used the Fennec Fox reconnaissance vehicle to discover that a team of cult paladins sneaked out of Rogue Town. Sarah should have been reported about this matter, but judging from her response, she probably just sent more reconnaissance patrol personnel to guard against the sudden appearance of this team of paladins. Originally, this was the safest way, nothing to say. But now, things have changed a little, and Ruger can try new methods. For example, aerial reconnaissance. What? Paladins can hide. They can hide from naked eye observation and magic detection, but they may not have the awareness to hide from thermal imaging search. Before, Ruger would use the electronic chip quick release design to move the thermal imager out for use. Not to mention how easy it is for the electronic chip in the quick release box to break under magic radiation. Even if the thermal imager is carried on a ground reconnaissance vehicle such as the Fennec Fox, the efficiency will only be so poor that it will make people despair. But now, with the Big Dog helicopter, both problems are solved at the same time. Aerial reconnaissance is far more efficient than ground reconnaissance, at least it covers a wide area and is fast. At the same time, the Big Dog helicopter has a mysterious biological tissue magic radiation protection function, and the thermal imager can work for a long time without fear of damage. It is simply a perfect weapon for Ruger to use for battlefield situation awareness. It is just right to search for the missing cult paladin team. Ruger walked slowly to the door of the 4-person tent of the Wind Elephant Iron Man, only to find that it was late at night, and they might be resting too. While hesitating, he heard a familiar voice coming from the tent. "Oh, how can I tell you? Although I have no evidence, that's what Lady Akara said. It's like Lady Isandra telling you that someone is your grandfather, even if that person is not as old as you. Oh, that won't work. You're too young. It's impossible. Well, even if that person is about the same age as me, what would you think? Such an absurd thing, there will always be doubts, but that was said by Lady Akara, Lady Isandra, deep down in my heart, I must still believe it, right?" When Ruger heard it, he thought, okay, isn't this his precious granddaughter Anya? Is she here to explain the blood relationship between the two of them to the two little guys? But, you have to verify it, right? The one who was talking to Anya was not the elder sister Li Min of the twins, but the younger brother Li Ji. This. Ruger had a strange premonition, and his heart was a little sour. He thought, is it possible that his precious granddaughter, who had just met not long ago, is going to grow up and leave the nest again? However, when he thought about what he had just done with the two people who had no blood relationship with this precious granddaughter, he felt that his reaction was a little, too domineering. Forget it, it's okay to be domineering, whose father and grandfather are not willful. How old is Anya? Not even 20 years old, why rush? Thinking of this, Ruger coughed lightly, opened the big tent door, and walked in. This tent was provided by Ruger to Roger, and it was also part of his arms deal with Sarah. It can accommodate up to 8 people. There are also matching simple foldable and detachable furniture, such as tables and chairs. When he came in, there were only 4 people in the tent. The twin brother and sister and Anya were sitting around the simple table and chatting on the chairs, while Maria was sleeping soundly on the folding bed. The elemental master Isandra mentioned by Anya was not in the tent. I don't know if she went to reminisce with other old friends in the camp, or if she had something else to do. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 327. The 3 people at the table here were slightly startled when they saw Lugger suddenly coming in, but soon their expressions changed completely. When Anya saw him coming in, she didn't know whether she thought of Sarah teasing Ruger when she was a driver on the Leopard 204, or she was afraid that he would hear what she just said, but her pretty face gradually turned red. Like a ripe apple. If Luge hadn't still smiled kindly at her, she would have run out of the tent immediately to find a place to hide. The boy Liji's expression was much calmer. He nodded to Lugger in a friendly manner and then stood up and moved another seat for him. As for the sister Li Min, who was holding an unknown type of bug or something in her hand, when she saw Lu Ji come in, she changed her previous disagreements with him and for some reason actually laughed enthusiastically. After blinking at Anya in front of her, she walked up to Lugger with a smile and greeted him proactively and kindly. "What are you doing? I still like your unruly look at the beginning." Lu Ji slowly sat down on the chair. After thanking the boy, he looked at Li Min and smiled, "Do you want to recover?" When Lu Ji said this, Li Min's smiling face immediately twitched, and she reached out and slapped him on the arm. Under normal circumstances, Lugger has always been wearing the Taijiman battle suit, but the protracted battle with the 2 demon gods just now cannot be considered normal. With his current appearance, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Uncle Baidu went out to the alley to make some soy sauce. As a result, the little girl slapped her arm firmly. "Hey, it still hurts. Did you use some hidden weapon?" Luge frowned, but said to Li Min with a half smile. "Humph, you deserve it." The little girl turned around and returned to her previous arrogant look. But before she could hold on for a second, she smiled ingratiatingly at Anya again. Anya frowned and thought for a while, then nodded, rolled up her sleeves, and handed over her arm as white and tender as a lotus root. Then Li Min took out the strange insect that looked like a cross between a leech and a firefly, and tapped it on Anya's fair little arm. "Ah, it really hurts." Anya frowned, but did not turn her head. Instead, she stared directly at Li Min's palm. Luge thought to himself, and sure enough, the friendly face of the little girl Li Min just now was just an act, just to let the strange insect in her hand bite him. It's not that he didn't notice it, but he was a little curious and wanted to see what she wanted to do. So he followed Anya's gaze and looked over. After a while, the first half was like a leech, and the second half was like an amputated firefly. After its belly rummaged twice, the light-emitting device at the end of its abdomen faintly emitted fluorescent light. The light was a bit green at first, then gradually became lighter and turned to yellow, then quickly turned to orange, and finally stabilized between red and orange, infinitely close to orange-red. "Wow, you are really closely related by blood. You are almost catching up with me and Aja. Are you actually brother and sister?" the little girl Li Min exclaimed excitedly while holding the firefly in her hand. Yelled randomly. "What kind of brother and sister?" Lugger slapped the little girl directly on the head and pulled up her hair. "I have already said that Anya is my precious granddaughter. I still don't believe it. Why do you still insist on using this kind of weird insect? Try it yourself, right?" Seeing that Ruger exposed her plan after just 2 glances, the little girl protected the strange insect in her hand, stretched out her hand to defend her hairstyle, and pouted in disbelief. What? You're lying. If you were Anya's grandfather, the light emitted by your blood after being eaten by Xiaoying should be more yellow than mine and Aja's. Now this light is both orange-red and ours, just a little bit yellower. It means that your blood relationship is just a little bit further than twins like me and Aja. How can you be the grandfather and grandson? Aren't the blood relationships that are a little more distant than twins just ordinary brothers and sisters? You little girl, you know a lot. Lugger continued to play with the little girl's hair, but it's not enough. I'd better give you some extra lessons. Although you and Aja are twins, you are one girl and one boy, with different genders, so you are fraternal twins. Fraternal twins, the biological relationship between you is the same as that between ordinary brothers and sisters. Identical twins are very closely related by blood. They are infinitely close to being identical. You and Aja are just like ordinary siblings. Anya and I are a little further apart than you. Doesn't that just mean that we are grandfather and grandson? Well, in fact, it can be roughly the relationship between uncle and nephew, uncle and niece, etc. In short, it is a step further than the relationship between father and daughter, brother and sister. Yes, is that so? The little girl was a little doubtful, and did not bother to continue to protect her hair. She turned to look at her most trusted think tank, her brother Aja. Well, at least there is no big problem logically, if the argument is true. The boy Li Ji nodded. Really, although Li Min didn't say it directly, his expression seemed to believe him. Listening to them talk about the high school biology knowledge that was only available in Lost Technology, Anya was a little confused. But she understood the final conclusion, that is, through the strange insect test that Li Min swore could detect the blood relationship between two people, the relationship between Lugger and her grandson was once again verified. Ruger is really his grandfather. Although she had believed it in her heart, Anya still felt inexplicably shy when the relationship was verified in person by some kind of detection method. It was not until the familiar warm big hand clasped her head again that the strange panic was gradually replaced by a sense of security. As for Ruger, seeing that Anya, who was killed by his head pat, not only did not continue to be shy, but looked relieved, Ruger had to change his original intention of teaching the little girl a lesson and turned it into a touch the fur, it won't scare you type of comfort. After being interrupted by the little girl Li Min, Ruger almost forgot how to continue the topic. Fortunately, Li Ji was relatively calm over there. Seeing that the frolic was almost over, he hurriedly asked Ruger's purpose. So Ruger told his previous plan. Hearing that Ruger wanted himself and others to help with the search mission, and gave him a thermal imaging device for free, and most importantly, there would be a fight, Li Min immediately agreed. Leave it to us. You are sure you can let me fight you this time, right? Send the news of the encounter back first, and then you can fight me as you like, Ruger said hurriedly, but you have to be careful, those guys are not easy to deal with. If De Huang gets hurt again, I won't be able to save him in time. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Ai Chi. Chapter 328. Okay, I'll just send you a signal flare when the time comes. Google search to read. Searched can on Google. Li Min waved his hand nonchalantly. As for those guys, at worst, I'll let De Wang fly higher, and I'll go down and fight them. Lu Ji was stunned when he heard this, and then he remembered that this little guy was a Taigaman. With that Taigaman armor around, 1 or 2 holy knights from the order might not necessarily be her match. However, Lugger groped his chin and looked at the little girl while thinking, wondering what the little girl's Taigaman main weapon would be. Could it be that, like Isandra, it has 3 staffs? 3-section stick? Use the 3-section stick quickly, he. Thinking of the scene of the little girl dancing with a stick and humming a song at the same time, Lugger felt that the scene seemed quite interesting. Hey, what the hell are you thinking about? Why are you staring at people and smiling weirdly? Perverts. Bad guys. Hooligans. The little girl conveniently gave him a nail polish. Well, no, she has 3 consecutive qualities. The little girl was guarding her like a pervert, and even Maria, who was sleeping soundly over there, woke up silently and became alert. Ruger touched his nose and felt that the matter was over, and he didn't seem to need to stay any longer. So he simply said hello to little Aja and left with Anya. However, Anya snorted twice. Although she was reluctant to part with his reassuring hand, she finally asked with a bit of stubbornness, "Lou, brother Lou, I want to spend the night at Li Min's place today." Huh, Lu Ge thought, why does this routine seem familiar? It seems that Anya just got a playmate of the same age not long ago, right? Who is coming? Yes, that female necromancer. Why do you just meet a new friend and immediately forget about the previous one? Oops, does this person who likes the new and hates the old follow her grandma or who? In such a matter, one would never admit that it was one's own influence. No, can't it? Seeing his thoughtful expression, Anya couldn't help but become nervous. Ah! How is that possible? Of course Lugger came back to his senses and said with a smile, I was thinking, haven't you been living with Kalia recently? You are here, what about her? Kalia, not long after she arrived here, she took a few Nephilims and went out to explore by herself. It seems that she never came back. When Anya said this, she didn't feel disappointed at being left behind by her friends. A look of relief. When Luge saw her like this, he felt something in his heart. He felt that his precious granddaughter was also a bit worried about the goth girl. That's why I was happy to separate from her. I went to sleep with my new friend this night, maybe just to be prepared for that guy to come back and pester me without saying a word. Okay, then you should go to bed early. We will start patrolling around the clock tomorrow. It will be difficult to sleep so peacefully again. After saying that, he turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly he saw a little boy named Aja. He couldn't help but said, half as a joke and half as a warning, as a man, since there is a lady staying over as a guest, shouldn't I show it to you? Lu Ge actually wanted to drag the boy Li Ji into his tent, but he didn't know that the little boy was more enlightened. He nodded and replied, we don't have much necessary rest time every day. I've already rested today. Since we have a mission tomorrow, why don't we start preparing now? This means that Ruger wants to install a thermal imager on the big dog helicopter now. Luge said to himself, good guy, I wanted to kidnap him away, but he pulled me down and used him as a hard labor. But looking at the sincere look on his face, he must have suffered the consequences of being mute. Fortunately, today, even if it is not done in the logistics space, such as installing a thermal imager on a helicopter, it only takes a few dozen minutes for Ruger. This is because in addition to the mechanical part, the big dog helicopter also needs to plan the biological part. Otherwise, he can do it in about 10 minutes. By the time the thermal imaging camera was installed, Isandra was coming back. So Aja took the rested Maria directly to the big dog helicopter and started patrolling the surrounding area. Using a thermal imager to search the ground in the air is much more efficient at night than during the day. It's just that the requirements for pilots are higher. Due to the light problem at night, pilots are prone to spatial cognitive impairment and mistake the ground for the sky. They think they are flying into the sky, but in fact they are hurtling toward the ground. However, this is not worth mentioning at all for Dawang and Aja, an extraordinary pair. Has anyone seen a native dog that stumbled while walking? The old, weak, sick, and disabled do not count. The native dog on the ground will not fall down on its own, nor will the rhubarb in the sky fall down by itself when it is so flying that it cannot recognize the sky and the earth. Watching the potential winners of the labor medal, Aja and Maria, take off into the air and fly away. Luger planned to say a few words to Isandra, who had just returned, and then go back, but he saw the light of gems shining faintly in the coarse cloth bag in her hand. Magic gems, he blurted out, did you go out to fight monsters and collect them before? Yes, Isandra seemed to have guessed what he was going to ask, and thought it would be okay to tell him these things, so she said directly, after I was transformed into that kind of thing, I lost the ability to cast spells in my body. You can only use external magic sources to cast spells. She raised the gem in her hand. What? Will the ability to use magic be lost if the Tegeman armor is colonized? That shouldn't be the case. Don't Sarah and Tia still have their previous abilities? They haven't changed at all. Could it be that they are the reincarnations of the 7 demon kings of hell? No, 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 that shouldn't be the case. Oh, that's right. Ruger just remembered. Before Isandra and the other 4 were colonized by Iron Man, they had been transformed into ghosts by the Ghost Biochemical Nest. Strictly speaking, they are no longer human, but biochemically modified people under the Ghost Biochemical technology. This should be the reason why she lost her magic ability. After understanding this, Ruger's subsequent questions were not easy to ask. Could it be that he wanted to expose other people's scars? So he quickly changed the topic and asked, well, seeing that you have collected so many, is this method very expensive? If you need a lot of gems, you can get more from me. I still have a sufficient amount of gems here. Oh, thank you, I won't need them for now. Isandra smiled in a friendly and somewhat inexplicable way. It's mainly because I didn't have much on hand before, and I fought a big war of attrition, so I used it up. Consumed. Ruger thought to himself, you guys haven't fought any other battles except for yourself? How did you use it up? But he looked at the witch's inexplicable eyes again, and thought about the witch's use of the 3 series of instant intermediate magic in the previous battle, and soon understood. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 329. Isandra didn't have enough magic stones because of Ruger himself. This is embarrassing. But Ruger thought about it again, and suddenly realized that this way of using magic stones as a source of magic power to cast spells, could he also learn it? After thinking about it for a while, he simply asked directly. You want to learn this kind of spell? Isandra obviously didn't expect him to make this request, and her expression was very surprised. However, she didn't refuse, nor did she say no directly, but said, I can try to teach you, but I need to tell you in advance that this method is not something that everyone can learn. Amin and I can master it because we are originally mages, with sufficient spellcasting memory and spellcasting skills. The implication is that Ruger, who has never learned magic, has a low chance of mastering this ability directly. Ruger wouldn't be too disappointed or anything after hearing this, just trying it out, it doesn't matter whether it works or not. Seeing that his expression was normal and there was no drastic change, the witch nodded silently, thinking that judging from this determination alone, this person's personality is suitable for the path of a magician. However, she has seen too many people who have a compatible personality but no talent being blocked from the path of magic over the years. Although thinking so, the witch quickly gathered her mind and asked Ruger to choose a preferred one among the 3 elemental magics. She began to demonstrate and teach. Ruger chose the lightning system without thinking. Because he had mastered several magics in this system through telekinesis. According to what the witch said before, his success rate in learning this system should be higher. Hearing that Ruger actually chose the system, although the witch did not say it explicitly, she nodded and said, not bad, you actually chose the most difficult one at once. Mr. Ruger has this courage. No matter what power system he practices, it is only a matter of time before he stands out. Well, if this was not said face to face by a female magician with a kind attitude and a kind face, Ruger would definitely think it was a sarcastic remark. What's the courage to choose the most difficult one? No matter what system, you can stand out. Isn't this a disguised way of saying forget it, you really don't understand magic at all, why don't you give up this idea and try another system? Well, in fact, the witch probably meant the same thing, but face-to-face communication can see the expression, which changes from sarcasm to euphemism. It can be seen how important it is to see the expression. In short, Ruger didn't care about her words, and the witch didn't say anything more, and released the most basic spell of lightning elemental magic charged bullet. First, while releasing it, she carefully explained the principle, and then the witch threw the charged bullet in her hand towards the grass. This spell is the most complicated among the basic spells. I will show you a few more times, please pay attention. As she said, the witch prepared to release it again. However, as soon as she raised her hand, she felt a small but solid familiar wave behind her. She looked back and saw that Ruger had gathered the charging bullet in his hand holding a yellow gem. The next moment, he threw the spell on the grass, which was exactly the same as the one the witch had cast before. How is this possible? Seeing that Ruger not only learned it after reading it once, but also cast the first spell so skillfully, the witch felt like she was dreaming. This situation is not impossible. She knew that most of the lost humans could not learn magic, but it was just a matter of habit, not that they really had no talent at all. As long as they were given time to adapt, there might be geniuses with excellent magic talent among the lost humans. Although the probability was shockingly low. But, it was not zero after all. Moreover, Li Min, whom she met in Meduo town, was such a magic genius. Although the twins were orphans, the old people in Meduo town knew about their parents. It is basically certain that their parents are also two lost ones, and they are both foreigners with black hair, black eyes, and yellow skin. The appearance of a Li Min shows that there is such a possibility. But then again, even Li Ji, who is also a twin, does not have this talent, and it is not because he has a congenital brain tumor, which shows how low the probability is. The witch asked herself, she has already met a Li Min, is it really possible to meet a second lost one magic genius? This probability is basically equivalent to being hit by a meteor twice in a row. Is there really such a coincidence in the world? The witch was amazed and patted Ruger with all kinds of rainbow farts. What magic genius, miracle, buried unpolished jade, change the trick. Ruger had 3 black lines on his forehead and was humble in order to offset the witch's overly excited performance. He knew his own affairs, and in fact, the matter was far less shocking than the witch thought. To be honest, Ruger was very dissatisfied with himself and even blamed himself. Because, after learning the witch's way of casting spells, he found that with his previous abilities, as long as he spent more time and effort to study, he could also master this method. This principle of casting spells was very similar to the way Tia taught him to make special ammunition with magic gems, and they were essentially the same. It's just that Tia's special ammunition is to get the fine powder on the magic gem off and detonate the magic in it, so as to achieve the effects of incendiary bombs, condensation bombs, lightning bombs, poison gas bombs, etc. The witch controls the entire magic gem by herself, guides part of the magic out, detonates it in a specific form, and then forms magic. Using the technology that Ruger is familiar with as an analogy, Tia's ammunition-style magic release is similar to the atomic bomb in his original world. It is to detonate the energy contained in the material as quickly and as much as possible at one time. The witch's control and guidance of magic release is similar to a nuclear reactor. It is to guide the energy in the nuclear material little by little under controllable conditions, and finally present a controllable output state in the way you want. On the surface, the difference is huge, but the two methods rely on the same principle, that is, the nuclear chain fission reaction. So in other words, his previous state is equivalent to having mastered the technology of making atomic bombs, and even successfully made atomic bombs and applied them, but he did not go further to study and light up the nuclear reactor technology route. In fact, the two different applications of the same principle are more violent and more difficult. It's like a child who hasn't learned to walk yet has learned to walk lightly. As a half researcher, I actually did this kind of thing, which is really eye-catching. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 330. Although this is the case, it is probably because I feel that Tia's elemental ammunition is not very useful, and I don't do it often, so I don't put my energy into it. But this is a big oversight after all. Besides, he has actually made a lot of this stuff recently. For example, almost every tank that has been modified by him, the fire extinguishing and explosion suppression device on it has been replaced by a small dose of condensation bombs made of frost magic gems. This makes up for the defect of no real-time monitoring by electronic sensors. The shrapnel bombs that were added when attacking the big dog helicopter before also used the dual effects of poison gas bombs and lightning bombs. So the small tungsten alloy steel balls can beat the big dog so badly. This is all in the past few days. Why didn't I think about controlled nuclear fission? Mistakes, big mistakes. As for saying that he is a magic genius and can learn this kind of thing right away, it is naturally not true. Just like what the witch said about herself and Li Min, Ruger also learned other ways of casting spells first, so he can learn this way quickly. It's just that the witch master and apprentice cast spells with their bodies, while he directly detonated the magic stone powder. Seeing that he mastered the magic stone casting so easily, the witch praised him in various ways and suggested, "Why don't you try mage meditation and try to go directly to the mage power system? With your extraordinary talent and personality advantages, you will definitely be a very powerful great mage in time." However, Ruger waved his hand and compared the magic stone in his hand and said, "That's enough. I already have my own power system path, which is quite comfortable to use. I don't plan to change it. Besides, this method does not conflict with my original system. It is still a good supplement. There is no need to waste time to change to a mage." "Is that so?" Isandra looked regretful, but still did not give up and said, "But the upper limit of the mage path is very high, perhaps in this world the highest in the world. You really don't want to try it?" "Well, thank you for your kindness." Ruger pondered for a moment, and said seriously, "It sounds like you have many regrets that you can no longer go on this path, right? If you want to regain your ability to cast spells, it is not completely impossible." "What?" The witch shuddered when she heard this, and regardless of Ruger's somewhat rude words, she hurriedly asked, "Really, is it possible?" "I think so." Ruger nodded. "You may not be interested in these things, but you should have seen how I implanted the device into De Wang's body just now, right? When this kind of equipment is exposed to the world, it will be affected by the existence of magic. And gradually damaged, the time it can exist intact is quite short. But your big dog helicopter De Huang has a technology, a kind of ghost biotechnology, which can absorb the magic in the environment before the magic damages the equipment. If you continue to study this biotechnology in depth, you may find a way for ghosts to use this magic. In other words." The witch nodded and continued, "It means that I, who was transformed into a monster by that monster, can regain the ability to use magic. It sounds worth a try." After speaking, the witch looked at Ruger with a fiery look again. "With your character ability of being good at observation and summary, and good at research, if you embark on the path of a mage, it may not take long you can become a great wizard. Are you really not going to consider it again?" "I am very satisfied with my current power system." Ruger smiled. "Master Isandra, you can try this path." The the witch did not expect Ruger to recruit her in the opposite direction. She was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Really, being suggested to change a path, this is how it feels. No, your power system should be the same as Maria and Aja's, right? I tried it out of curiosity, but it is not suitable for me. Besides, don't you think the upper limit of this fighting method is too low? You have such a good talent. The witch just said that she understood the feeling of being suggested to change a path, and after 2 sentences, she couldn't help but persuade Ruger again. It can be seen that she values Ruger's magic talent and her love for the magic path. However, Ruger noticed another thing. You said Maria, Aja and I are on the same path. You may have misunderstood. Although we are both members of the Lost One's power system, we are on different paths. Well, Maria's fighting style relies more on various single-person weapons, and she often rushes to the front line alone. Seeing the witch nodded, Ruger continued, that's it? She is a warrior. If compared with the Nephilim, she is closer to the barbarians, who are masters of weapon use and charge on the front line. As for Aja, he has always been the pilot of the big dog helicopter, right? He relies on his excellent ability to control large weapons to go to the battlefield. His path is called a hunter in the Lost Ones, or simply a charioteer, or for Aja, a helicopter pilot. It should be more appropriate to use the word driver. His path in the Nephilim system is more like the core of a team, like a paladin who can attack and defend, and is an integrated offensive and defensive team. As for me, Ruger casually took out a bunch of small parts and put them together into a pump-action shotgun, a light weapon he was most familiar with, in front of the witch in a few seconds. I am a mechanic. As you can see, I can make both the weapons used by Maria and the tank helicopter driven by Aja. By analogy with the Nephilim, I am actually an alchemist. Ruger pointed at the witch and then at himself, our power systems are actually closer in terms of talent requirements. I see the witch suddenly realized and nodded, this makes sense. No wonder your magic talent is so high. It turns out that you are already an alchemist. Then, you can even make De Huang. I mean, De Huang's original mechanical body. After understanding the mechanic's power system through the alchemist's analogy, the witch Isandra was obviously not as indifferent as before, and became curious about this path. The big dog helicopter is a semi-mechanical, semi-biological weapon based on a Me-24P that has undergone a bizarre biochemical transformation. Isandra's words were actually asking Ruger if he could build a Me-24P. Yes, Ruger nodded, but then added, as long as there are enough materials. Good guy. If he hadn't added the sentence quickly, he was really afraid that the witch's next sentence would be to ask him to build her another Me-24.